Welcome back for the third and final part of my lecture on the rise of Hitler. And quick shout out to Haley and all of my friends at Pinnacle High School in Phoenix, Arizona. So when we left Hitler, it was 1928, and there had been an election during this so-called golden age of the Weimar Republic. And we see that Hitler's party is really nowhere on the radar. Oh wait, there's a blip. There we go. 9th place with 2.6% of the vote, 14 out of the 491 seats. Hardly a major player. But then there is an intervening event, a turning point, and that turning point is the Great Depression. And there's something about hard economic times when people are struggling, and generally it makes people embrace more extreme candidates than they would embrace in a traditional election. When things seem to be working, well, we will trust the existing political class. When things are clearly not working, then we need to get them out of there, and we need to bring in people who will make our country great again, for lack of a better term. And so the Nazis turn up their propaganda engine. We see here, break the Dawes chains. Now, the thing is, the Dawes chains, give me a break. America was trying to help them, all right? The Dawes plan was something that we put into place where we gave Germany loans so that they could pay their reparations payments to France and to Britain, and Britain and France could then pay the loans they owed us. So it was this massive money laundering operation that we were trying to help Germany. But then the Nazis, they're just like,
oh, America's not trying to help you, and
whatever. All right, but yeah, Nazis. I mean, that's just how they are. Never do something for a Nazi because they are not going to thank you and they are not going to appreciate it. Lesson learned. So then we see here this poster. 2 million dead. In vain? Never. Front soldiers. Adolf Hitler is showing you the way. And you see this invocation of German militarism, that this Weimar ineffective, government, that no, we want to go back to the days of Germany's greatness. And we don't want to be in this situation where people have died and they've died just so Germany can be just a crap country, that's not what people want. So front soldiers, calling all of the veterans and people who believe in that German militaristic spirit. And then we see here just a laundry list of wrongs: usury, Versailles, unemployment, war guilt, lie, Marxism, Bolshevism, lies and betrayal, inflation, Locarno, Dawes Act, Young Plan, corruption, prostitution, terror, civil war. Oh my goodness, lots of stuff going on. And then we see here, when we look closely, that this sword is stabbing the snake's head, which has a Star of David on it. And then we see the names of 3 prominent Jewish government officials who'd been found guilty of corruption. So their names are on there. So the Jews are being scapegoated here in this poster for all of the wrongs of Germany. And so in 1930, it's like, whoa, okay, we got some new faces here. The Social Democrats still coming in first, but we see here the second party, Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party, and then, wait for it, the Communists. And so in third place, we have the Communists. Now, this is going to be a very big deal because when it comes down to it, Hitler's party is not a party that a lot of people in the mainstream are very comfortable with. But then when you see that, okay, it looks like you've got these 2 fringe parties and one of those parties is a communist, then nobody's worse than a communist, right? That's how people are thinking. So when it comes down to it, people are much more alarmed by that third place finish by the communists than they are by the second place finish by the Nazis. And so we see here more Nazi posters. And what Hitler's trying to do in the election of 1932, we find him, first of all, shoring up his base. That here are workers, and they say, we are for Adolf Hitler. We are, with him, so to speak. And so this poster is appealing to the working class base. Now, this poster is actually appealing beyond it. This says workers of mind, of hand. And so here is an effort for Hitler to, appeal to business leaders and people like that, to white-collar people. Vote for front soldier Hitler. That Hitler was a front soldier. Hitler is not just some kind of political hack. And so we see here in 1932 that Hitler has more votes than anybody else, that we've seen Hitler's party go way up, but then the communists still in third place. And so Hitler is going to use this to his advantage because it's going to be in terms of like, look, people are voting for extreme parties. Do you want to vote for me, or do you want to vote for the communist, or do you want to support him or support the communist? And so we see here that, in November of 1932, there's another election in the same year after the government fails. And we see here that the communists are gaining while the Nazis and the Social Democrats are losing votes. So once again, this fear of the communist is going to be driving a lot of what goes on here. And so pick your poison. You've got the National Socialist, then the Social Democrats, and the Communists. Now, the thing is that you've got technically, three socialist parties, but Hitler's National Socialism disavows Marxism and communism. And so when you are a business leader or somebody like that, somebody on the center right, and you're looking at these options, then Hitler seems to be the least offensive, and especially because his party has tried to demonstrate in these more recent elections that it's not an anti-business party, that it's not an anti-professional, anti-bourgeois party. That's what he's trying to do here. So pick your poison, and a lot of people are going to pick the Nazis. That Hitler is going to be declared by Paul von Hindenburg, the president of Germany, is going to be declared the chancellor. So the threat of communism is making Hitler more palatable to the center right. And we see here Hitler shaking hands with General Hindenburg. Now, when you look at this, Hitler is being very, very respectful, kind of like President Obama does sometimes when he's shaking hands with these world leaders. And we see that Hindenburg is shaking hands with Hitler. I think Hindenburg he looks a little reluctant. Of course, by this time he's in his 80s and going in and out of senility. So in 1933, you've got three events that are really key in cementing Hitler's final ascendancy to power and the creation of a one-party state. These events are the Reichstag Fire, the 5th of March federal elections, and the Enabling Act on the 23rd of March. And so what you see here is that there was a fire. The Reichstag caught on fire, okay? So the legislative chamber of the German nation catches on fire. Now, nobody knows who did it, all right? It's kind of like when the Maine blew up in Havana Harbor and, nobody knew who did it, but we can blame somebody, all right? And in this case, blame the communists. Now, here is a lesson, all right, that Hitler realized that, look, this fire has happened, all right, that there is a crisis here. People are panicking, people are fearful, and you know what? When thinking about who to blame, let's pick somebody that is not popular. Because if you blame the communists, if something goes wrong in your life or anybody's life, you blame the communists, then nobody will argue with you. Just find an unpopular group to blame something on, and then there you go. And so Hitler blames the communists, and as a result, the Reichstag Fire Decree is issued by President Hindenburg. And the Reichstag Fire Decree called for the suspension of civil liberties and the arrest of communist leaders. And you see here in the decree that, the Constitution's basically being put on timeout or something. These articles of the Constitution of the German Reich are suspended until further notice. It is therefore permissible to restrict the rights of personal freedom, habeas corpus, freedom of expression, including the freedom of the press, the freedom to organize and assemble, the privacy of postal, telegraphic, and telephonic communications, warrants for house searches, orders for confiscations, as well as restrictions on property are also permissible beyond the legal limits otherwise prescribed. So, German Constitution, go take a little break, all right? We've got this. And so what happens here is that Hitler's party in the 5th of March elections that come right after this, his party gains. And we can see here that the communists, for the first time, that they are actually going down a bit, all right? So the reputation of the Communist Party suffers because of this. And Hitler has 43%. Now, not a majority, but enough seats to where he could get together with one more right-wing party and form a coalition. which is what he does. But that is not enough. It is not enough for Hitler to be the leader of a coalition government of right-wing parties. Hitler wants sole power. Hitler wants single-party rule in Germany under his party, under his rule. And so what he wants to do is pass the Enabling Act, which will allow Hitler to make laws without the approval of the Reichstag for 4 years. Now, that is a long time to give somebody dictatorial power. That the Romans, they maxed it out at 6 months. That this is really just an insane sort of piece of legislation. We see here the political factions of the Reichstag. So you've got Hitler's coalition in one group, and in another group you've got the Catholic parties, and then the third group being the leftists. And so what had to happen, this Enabling Act had to pass by 2/3 of the Reichstag because it was a constitutional amendment. But there's some fine print. It's really 2/3 of 2/3 because you've got a quorum. And a constitutional amendment required 2/3 of those present in order to pass. And 2/3 needed to be present. So what you're looking at, as Lily said in class last week, is 4/9. That really you don't even need a majority in order to get this to pass. So how do we get this up to 2/3? Well, first of all, arrest the communists, put them in jail, and then get rid of their seats. Like, don't say that they're members of the chamber, that basically because they were responsible for the Reichstag fire, that they have forfeited their seats in the Reichstag. And so the thing is, you've got one leftist party and left, and then you've got the Catholic parties. How are they going to vote? Well, when we look at the speech that Hitler made before the vote on the Enabling Act, we see here that he is criticizing atheistic organizations such as the Communist Party. And then he goes on to say that the national government will allow and confirm to the Christian denominations the enjoyment of their due influence in schools and education. So what we see here is that he's going to protect Catholic schools. And then he says here the rights of the churches will not be curtailed. Says something about the maintenance of the friendliest relations with the Holy See. So what we see here in Hitler's speech is that Hitler is reaching out very directly to these Catholic parties and saying that, like, look, the Weimar government hasn't given you as good of a deal as what I'm going to give you. And so Hitler says that, look, I'm going to take care of the Catholics. And so what happens here is a 2/3 majority is reached, okay, in quotes, 2/3, because the only party to vote against the Enabling Act, the only major party, was the Social Democratic Party. They opposed the Enabling Act, and pretty much everybody else voted for it. So now Nazi Germany is going to become a one-party state, that Hitler has used the democratic process in order to bring about a dictatorship without firing a shot. And so that's that. Everything else is Hitler in power, going from there, and at some point I may do some more lectures on that, so stay tuned. If you feel like you learned something, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, TomRichey.net, social media, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that. I'll be back soon. Until next time.